My name is Olivia, and at 55, I thought I had seen the worst life could throw at me, but nothing prepared me for the day the man I gave my youth, my dreams, and my soul to looked me in the eyes and told me he wanted someone younger. That moment felt like a quiet explosion inside my chest, like every memory of laughter, every late-night conversation, every wrinkle earned together shattered in one sentence. I remember standing in our kitchen, the same place where I once fed him homemade soup when he came home tired, where we danced barefoot while cooking, where our children took their first steps, and yet suddenly I was a stranger in a life I helped build. He didn't say it with anger or guilt, just a cold finality that cut deeper than yelling ever could, as if I had expired like spoiled milk, as if 25 years of loyalty, sacrifice, and shared dreams were a season he could now discard. For a moment, I felt myself collapsing inside, not physically but emotionally, a quiet sinking like drowning without water, and I remembered everything I gave up for him, the job offers I turned down so he could build his career, the nights I stayed awake nursing sick kids alone while he traveled, the dreams I postponed and the self I forgot so we could be us. Age crept up like a soft thief, not all at once but in tiny subtle touches, and while I counted smiles, he counted years, while I cherished memories, he compared bodies. My hands trembled but my voice didn't, maybe because heartbreak sometimes brings out the courage we forget we have, and I looked at him, this man I loved more than my own pride, and instead of begging or breaking, I simply said, you might find someone younger, but you will never find someone who loved you at every version of yourself. And in that moment, I watched something flicker in his eyes, not regret exactly but shock, as if he had expected tears or silence, not strength. I told him that youth is borrowed time, beauty shifts like seasons, and love isn't measured in firm skin or fresh smiles but in the hands that held you when life bruised you, the heart that stayed when storms hit, the soul that chose you daily, and that yes, my face carries lines and my body carries stories, but each wrinkle is a chapter carved by loyalty, motherhood, laughter, loss, and healing, and I would never apologize for living instead of staying frozen in my 20s. I reminded him that when he lost his job 12 years ago, I worked double shifts without complaint. When his mother fell sick I bathed her as gently as if she were my own, when he doubted himself I spoke life into him, and when our house burned down I rebuilt not walls but hope, and if after all that he thought youth was worth more than devotion, then he was already lost long before today. Tears filled his eyes, something like realization or panic, but I didn't let him speak, because this moment wasn't about him anymore, it was about me rediscovering the woman I forgot I was, the woman who once dreamed before she learned to compromise, the woman who deserved love that didn't age expire. And I told him, calm as still water, you may leave, but remember this, a younger woman may renew your ego, but she will never replace the woman who built your life with her bare hands. And as I walked away, I finally understood something heartbreaking yet freeing. Sometimes God doesn't remove people to punish us but to return us to ourselves, and while he left chasing youth, I found grace, dignity, and a heart no longer begging to be chosen. And that was the day I stopped mourning what ended and started honoring what remained, me, a woman who learned that love given without self-love becomes a slow death, and life after heartbreak isn't about revenge, it's about rebirth, and nothing is more powerful than a woman who knows her worth again. When the door closed behind him, the silence felt heavier than his presence ever did, and for a moment I stood there, not as a wife abandoned but as a woman rediscovering the pieces of herself she had tucked away for years. And in that quiet space I realized that heartbreak doesn't hit all at once, it comes in waves, some soft like nostalgia, some fierce like betrayal, and yes I cried, not because I wanted him back but because 25 years don't just walk away without leaving footprints on your heart. But through the tears there was this strange, growing warmth inside me like a lantern being lit after years of darkness, a reminder that I was still here, breathing, worthy, alive, and soon instead of asking why he left, I started asking why I ever forgot myself for so long. I think every woman who gives everything eventually reaches a moment like this, where she stands at the edge of who she used to be and who she is meant to become, and I made myself tea, sat by the window, watched the sky shift shades like it was repainting the world for me, and I whispered to myself, this is not the end of love, this is the beginning of loving me. And as the days passed something shifted slowly, like seasons changing. The bed felt too big at first, the house too quiet, my hands unsure what to do without familiar routines, but emptiness isn't just space missing, it's space waiting to be filled with purpose. new laughter, softer mornings, and peace that isn't dependent on someone's presence. People whispered, they always do, some pitied me, some judged me, some women looked at me with fear because I was living the nightmare they secretly prayed would never arrive at their door. Yet even through the whispers I held my head high because shame doesn't belong to the one who loved faithfully, it belongs to the one who thought love had an expiration date. One afternoon my daughter came over, anger blazing in her eyes, ready to fight the world for me, but I held her face and told her, sweetheart, don't hate him. Sometimes people break not because they're evil but because they don't know how to stay, and I wasn't protecting him, I was protecting her heart from becoming bitter like I refused to become. Instead of drowning in pain I started taking walks, long ones, where I could feel the breeze kiss my skin like life, reminding me I was still desired by the universe, not just a man, and I bought myself flowers every week because beauty didn't need permission to exist in my home anymore. And I joined a small book club at the library where my laughter returned piece by piece, like it had been waiting patiently for me to invite it back. Strangers became friends, and one of them, a widow named Clara with silver hair and eyes full of wisdom, told me softly, loss doesn't always mean death, sometimes it means release, and those words rooted themselves inside me like strength disguised as poetry. Months passed, and one evening I bumped into my husband at the supermarket, his hair somehow grayer, his face a little tired, like someone who had been running from himself and finally realized there's nowhere to hide from regret, and he tried to smile but it trembled, and he asked quietly, how have you been? And I answered gently, honestly, growing. And he swallowed like the word stung him more than any anger could, because growth is something those who chase youth rarely understand. He glanced at my basket and saw the flowers and fresh fruit and new cookbook I had picked up, and he realized I wasn't surviving without him, I was blooming, and he whispered, voice cracking, I miss us, but I didn't shatter, I didn't crumble. Instead I felt this calm power, the kind a woman gains when she rebuilds her life with her own hands, and I told him, you miss the comfort, not the commitment, and I walked away, not with bitterness but with grace, because moving forward isn't about proving someone wrong, it's about honoring the woman you're becoming. And as I drove home, windows down, wind tangling my hair like freedom's own fingers, I realized something beautiful. The man I once begged the universe for was not the man I needed to grow into the woman I am now, and if love ever finds me again it won't be because I was afraid to be alone, it will be because I am complete on my own and someone worthy decided to meet me there. Years later, when people asked how I survived losing a love I thought would last forever, I always smiled, because I didn't lose love, I rediscovered it in myself. The woman who once measured her worth by someone else's eyes now wakes up to her own reflection and whispers, you stayed with me, thank you, and every morning feels like a quiet celebration of choosing myself. Sometimes I still see him in town, older now, not just in age but in spirit, a man who chased youth only to find loneliness, and when our eyes meet there's no anger in me, only a soft sadness, like watching someone stare at a door they walked through willingly but now wish they hadn't. He told our son once that time doesn't heal guilt, it just makes you learn to live beside it, and I don't rejoice in his regret because healing doesn't come from someone else hurting, it comes from no longer needing them to. My life isn't grand or loud, but it's full, early morning prayers that make my heart quiet and strong, friends who laugh with me until we cry, grandbabies who climb into my lap and trace my wrinkles like tiny explorers discovering the map of my life, and evenings where I sit on my porch with coffee and watch the sky soften into gold and pink and I think, look at me, still here, still growing, still blooming. Love did find me again, but not in the way people expect, not in a new husband or a fairy tale romance, but in a gentle man who met me at a community garden and didn't try to fill my past, only offered to share my present, and when he held my hand for the first time, I didn't feel young, I felt valued, and that was so much better. Sometimes healing means building again, and sometimes it means learning how to receive again, and I learned that youth is a moment but dignity is a lifetime, that beauty is not an unlined skin but in a spirit that refuses to break. And that a woman is never past her prime, she simply enters a new one when she chooses herself. So if someone listening to my story is hurting right now, feeling discarded, forgotten, or replaced, hear me, your worth didn't leave with them, your beauty didn't fade because they couldn't see it anymore, your story didn't end just because they walked out. Stand tall, breathe deep, dry your tears, and remember that sometimes life removes people not to punish you but to prepare you for the version of yourself you were always meant to meet, and one day, just like me, you'll look back not with pain but with gratitude, not because they left, but because you finally returned to yourself, and that, my dear, is a love story no one can ever take away. Please like and subscribe my channel.